The Cold Within is a poem which is written by James Patrick Kinney. It is a poem written by the American poet James Patrick Kinney in 1960s. The poem is a pointed comment on lack of warmth and compassion. The poem deals with the theme of futility of discrimination or hatred that humans have against each other. The poem projects discrimination based on race, class, and religion by narrating the story of six individuals who are caught together by chance and extreme cold. The people in the poem are from different backgrounds and religions. Owing to their prejudices against one another, it becomes difficult for them to put their stick into the fire. Discrimination, racism, and bigotry proves futile as none of the six people stay alive by the end. Each perishes not because of the cold outside, but of the cold heartedness within each. Now, students, in the first stanza, what is given? Six humans trapped by happenstance in black and bitter cold. Each possessed a stick of wood, or so the story is told. Six humans trapped by happenstance. Now, what do you mean by happenstance? Something that happens by chance. And what do you mean by trapped? Something by which one is caught against his wish. No one wishes to get trapped. Therefore, the meaning goes something by which one is caught against his wish. Now, in the first stanza, the six humans are trapped together by chance in biting cold. It was too severe cold. And each one of them has a stick of wood into the hands. In this first stanza, it forms the setting of the poem, and against this background, the story is narrated. In the second stanza, the dying fire in need of logs, but the first one held hers back. For of the faces round the fire, she noticed one was black. Now, what do you mean by the word logs? Logs means thick pieces of wood. One more meaning is there, students. Bleak. Bleak means unpleasant. The climate, the weather conditions were not good. They were very unpleasant. The cold was very severe. It was a very biting cold, and therefore the poet uses the word bleak, which means unpleasant. What do you mean by black? Black means belonging to a race of people who have a dark complexion, who have a dark skin. In the US, people from this area are referred to as African Americans. They are referred as blacks. So in the second stanza, what does the poet wants to tell us? He says that it is extremely cold and the fire that is keeping them warm is dying. The fire can be kept alive, but only if one of them put his log to use, put his stick to use, and make the fire go on belated. The first person in the group, a woman, is prejudiced when she noticed that one of the faces round the fire is black. She therefore holds her log back. She does not put her log into the fire. Now, what is the third stanza? The next man, looking across the way, saw one knot of his church and could not bring himself to give the fire his stick of birch. Now, what do you mean by the word birch? It's a type of a tree that has outer bark which can be pulled off very easily. Now, in the third stanza, what does it mean? Another man looks across the way and finds out that one of them does not belong to the same church, that is a religious community. He does not belong to his community as his, and therefore he decides not to put the log into the fire. This fact stops him from using his stick in the fire. Now come to the next stanza. The third one sat in a tattered clothes. He gave his coat a hitch. Why should his log be put to use? To warm the ideal rich. Now, what does the poet means to tell us here? The third one is a poor man who sits in a tattered clothes. Now, what do you mean by the word tattered? Tattered means torn clothes. So, the third one is a poor man who is sitting in a tattered clothes to protect himself from freezing cold. He gives his coat a hitch. What do you mean by a hitch? Pull up or fasten tightly because it was too cold. Therefore, he gives his coat a hitch. He does not use his log to prevent the rich man sitting there from getting warm. And therefore, he also does not put his log into the fire. In the next stanza, the rich man just sat back and thought of the wealth he had in store and how to keep what he had earned from the lazy, shiftless poor. Now, what does the rich man thinks here in this stanza? The rich man, on the other hand, thinks of his wealth, of his possessions he has in store, and how to keep it safe from the poor man. And that is the reason why the rich man also decides not to put the log into the fire to keep burning. In the next stanza, the black man's face bespoke revenge as the fire passed from his sight. For all he saw in his stick of wood was a chance to spite the white. Now, the black man's face looked revengeful, and the only thing visible to him in his stick is a chance to harm the white man. He wanted to harm the white man, and therefore he was in a revengeful nature. He was thinking of a revenge to take from the white man, and that's the reason why the black man decides not to put the log into the fire. In the next stanza, the last man of this fallen group did not accept for gain. Giving only to those who gave was how he played the game. The last man of this fallen group, that is the lonely group, does nothing except something for his benefit. What rules him is selfishness. He gives only to those who give him something back in return. He is very selfish. He thinks that what am I going to get back in return? If I'm going to get something back in return, then only I'm going to put the log into the fire. And that's the reason why, because of his selfish nature, he decides not to put the log of wood into the fire. Now, in the last stanza, the logs held tight in death's still hands was proof of human sin. They didn't die from the cold without, they died from the cold within. In the last stanza, their logs being held tight in their hands, invite death. It is nothing but a proof of human sin. The poem ends with a note that these six people did not die from the freezing cold outside, but of the cold within them. This is what the poem is all about. We conclude that it is the poem which proves to human beings, to all of us, to all the readers, that it is lacking in warmth in human relations. The six people in the poem can be seen as representatives of the whole human race on this earth. It is said that these people are overtaken by the feelings of revenge, spite, and anger to such an extent that eventually these prejudices lead them to their deaths. The six humans are devoid of humanity, and even when they are going through the same situation, they cannot cooperate with each other. Warmth and compassion for each other is not seen in them. Each one of them has a log that can be put to use not only for others but also for themselves. However, their differences surpass their survival instinct. The lack of warmth is best expressed in the line, the dying fire in need of logs. The dying fire in need of logs. Literally, it refers to the fire that is dying and needs to be kept alive with the use of a log. Metamorphically, it can be understood as the fire of compassion in their hearts that is dying. To keep it burning, what they need is a log of wood, but they do not use it. Thus, by the end, each one of them dies from the cold within. Outside cold could have been taken care of only if they were not cold from within.